Greetings, programs, and welcome back to UA Dreadnoughts. I thought I'd have a little look at this. I did actually try recording a warships video yesterday, but for some reason the microphone feed was very, very hissy. It was almost unbearably slow towards the end of the video, and between that and the several coughing fits, I decided to just scrap it. So I'll have a go at that again tomorrow, probably. But for now, I thought I would dip in on UA Dreadnoughts in its current version. It's actually technically released, but it doesn't feel all that different from when it was still technically in early access. So, yeah, it should still, I think, be treated as though it's kind of an EA title. So, I've actually been doing an Austria-Hungary campaign. This was an 1890 start. We're actually getting towards the end of it timeline-wise, and I think if you're after some kind of strategy game, this is not necessarily a great game, but its focus really is more about the making your ships and then bashing them against the enemy ships kind of thing. As a strategy game, it has some very glaring deficiencies, and if there's ever a UA Dreadnoughts 2, maybe they will address some of those. But yeah, for now, if you want to buy this, you're buying it because of the ships rather than anything else. So here we are. This is the Austro-Hungarian Empire, which is stretching a little further than it is in real life, although we have lost Bohemia Moravia to Germany in a previous war. We're currently in a bunch of wars. We're at that stage of the game where, well, I don't know if it's that stage of the game or if it's just kind of cyclical or random, but yeah, the game just decides to throw a whole bunch of wars at you at once. And I've actually lost some bits of territory. So we had Yemen, for example, and Guantanamo Bay somehow, which got taken back by the British. We do still have a couple of holdings in the Caribbean, but it's kind of hard to defend those. Yeah, if I can actually mouse over the port, that would be. There we go. So it's just, these are not particularly big ports, so I can't really station heavy forces over there, which is a bit tricky. So yeah, most of it's concentrated over in the Adriatic. We do have, we basically kicked Russia out of the Black Sea. We're also at war with the US, well, Russia, USSR at the moment, but none of these attacks are going anywhere. And we're actually being attacked. Well, I mean, we didn't even just lose Bohemia Moravia. We lost Austria itself to the Italians. So yeah, Austria-Hungary is now at the moment just kind of Hungary. That was a bit of an economic blow. We're kind of on a bit of an economic slide generally, just because a lot of my transports are getting nobbled, and we've lost some valuable provinces. But we'll have some battles still to be going with. This is my main fleet right here at the moment, which is I think currently going to repair. Yeah, some of them do need repairs. Also, take a quick look at some of my ships, I guess. So I've got some very old refitted designs, but not many of them. I think the oldest one that's still in use is this hull here, which I don't even know. That would have been that's a kind of a 1900s hull that's somehow still in service. It's had some fairly extensive refits. Some of the battleships are also fairly ancient at this point. I actually started off with the idea that I was going to have a unified armament of all my battleships and all my heavy cruisers having 9-inch guns, and some of them do still have 9-inch guns. The heavy cruisers all still have 9-inch guns, but the battleships, I've started upgrading them. But there's one in particular. Here we go. This was my sort of maximum 9-inch gun design philosophy. This is possibly one of the sillier ships I've ever made in this game. It was just answering the question of how many 9-inch guns do you want, and the answer was yes. So yeah, that's 5 centerline turrets and 4 side-mounted turrets. I can't even remember off the top of my head how many barrels that is, and I'm not going to embarrass myself by trying to tot it up in my head just now. But yes, basically, very, very potent HE, relatively fast-firing 9-inch guns. 9-inch guns are the smallest guns you can have on a battleship. Basically means that this thing burns down the opposition quite nicely. I have absolutely been abusing the HE mechanics in this particular game. Anyway, we'll roll forward the timer and we should have at least some fights going on. Right, we're currently being blockaded. We've also got Katara, that's down there somewhere. I don't know, like, technically this is unopposed, like we've lost those transports basically. But oh, there we go. Right, so yeah, actually I've forgotten that I'd set up a naval invasion. I'm trying to counter-invade Italy, but it's proving a bit tricky. But yeah, I do have ships around here, but for some reason, where is even this French light cruiser? I don't know, that sank those ships. But you know, we have a heavy cruiser that is currently based in port there. So yeah, I don't know if that's a bug or not with the current version of the game, but I've definitely encountered that before, where it will act as though you have nothing opposing these enemy ships, even though you do have a ship in port that has the correct fleet stance to actually go out and contest stuff. I think everybody's on sea control at the moment. Well, actually, I have 2 in being. We want those for sea control. So, yeah, I don't really know. I think that's a bug. We also have a battle cruiser here that we should probably go take care of. So I'll actually. Oh, no, there we go. All right, I don't want to. It's a bit cancelling the orders sometimes. Let's send those heavy cruisers, and actually no, let's also send those heavy cruisers. Heavy cruiser and the light cruiser. So we'll try and intercept this battle cruiser. Somehow they keep sending ships into the Black Sea, even though they don't have, like, their closest port is all the way over here, basically. So yeah, I can't do anything to influence any of these land invasions. By the way, that's a mechanic that is completely out of your hands. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff in this game that is just completely out of your hands. So that naval invasion, basically, once we have this fleet repaired, we'll send that fleet to that naval invasion marker. We also have a convoy that we can defend. And this is CL, and this is an Allied destroyer. I think that's a Greek destroyer. That's another thing. It would be really nice if you could directly influence is relations with minor nations. The only influence you have is relations with major nations, and even then, it is just influence. You don't get to choose who you're going to be allied with. You just get to try and nudge things a bit here and there. So, yeah, and then you don't get to do that at all with minor nations, and that would actually be pretty damn useful, because there are a lot of times where you might end up allied with somebody that is just in a geographically kind of useless position, and the you know, maybe more prosperous minor nation next door that has a navy is just, you know, you can't do anything about it. You know, that they would be the most useful ally, but no, you can't influence them directly. You can't try and ally with them. It's all just somehow out of your hands. So we have a enemy destroyer and an enemy cruiser. Do we even have this? This is a destroyer. Okay. Yeah. This one's Danish, I think. Is this one Danish? Has it got actually useful torpedo range? Yeah, I think it's like Denmark and Romania and Greece are my current minor nation allies. So this is a 6-inch gun light cruiser. There isn't really a uniform battery. A lot of my light cruisers are 5 or 5.5 inch. I did do a couple of 6-inch ones with a fairly respectable 10-second reload. As you can see, 32 knots, maximum belt. You can't have more than a 6-inch belt on a light cruiser. So all in all, they're pretty reasonable. I think we've got oxygen propulsion torps on these as well, so very long range. Although torpedoes are almost more dangerous in the early game. They're closer range, but everyone's torpedo defenses are so kind of rubbish that if they can get to close enough range, you know, the kilometre and a half or whatever of early torpedoes, probably not even that, they are very hard to dodge because, you know, your ships are slower and they can be fairly devastating. I think in theory it's possible to build a destroyer, a sort of Japanese just long lance style destroyer, and have it basically be unspotted and shadowing a larger group of enemy ships, and just sort of make stealth torpedo drops on them. But you don't really, like, you can't carry enough torpedoes to deal with an enemy group of ships decisively enough that way, and it's something. There was some other point I was going to make there. Anyway, but yeah, you can theoretically do that. But I did have some other point there, and I don't know what it was now. Anyway, so that was a quick little encounter defending a convoy. And got some victory points towards me, which is nice. The annoying thing with Italy at the moment is I have basically sunk their fleet. They're down to like 10 or 15 ships and however many submarines they have. I have absolutely thrashed them. But the army, the Austro-Hungarian army, is likewise also getting thrashed by the Italians, which is weirdly ahistorical. But I mean, maybe not ahistorical for World War I, but we're sort of in the World War II era at this point. And I can't do anything about it. There's literally nothing I can do about it. I think the only indirect influence you have is over your nation's GDP. More GDP means more army budget, basically. Obviously more budget for you as well. But given that the last, like, maybe 10 years have been largely spent at war, it's severely depleted my number of transports available, and I've been struggling even just to maintain the fleet that I have, much less build things up more. Right, we actually have... do we have enough tonnage? Now, all of those battleships are currently repairing. Okay. We need to get rid of those. Alright, so let's do another turn. So, actually, this is interesting. The Soviet Union's asking for a peace treaty. We haven't traded land either way, so we'll agree and hope that that actually does fire off, because it isn't guaranteed, even if you're both hoping for a treaty. Right, so we're going to attack this 35,000-ton battle cruiser. It's probably better we're not having any large-scale battles. The large-scale battles are fun, but also much more annoying to manage, and the game really does start to chug at that point when you have lots of ships on the screen. So it's running fine at the moment with only a couple of ships, but you get two fleets meeting each other of say 20 ships apiece. The game client really does start to struggle. So let's have a look. What was this battle cruiser? That is a slightly funky design. It does not have any forward-facing guns at all. That's like something I would design. Yeah, the AI does come up with some slightly odd designs. sometimes, but we don't know what kind of armor it has, what kind of speed it has, anything like that quite yet, because we haven't identified it. Even though we have identified it, we know it's the battlecruiser Kronstadt. We have to actually then identify it in the battle itself. So we've got, let's see, 9 inch, okay, these are all 9-inch gunned cruisers. I think these might even all be the same class. Yeah, I did a kind of Pensacola style with these sort of 10-gun cruisers, which is something I think is like, it means they desynchronize, but I don't think there's any particular penalty. And I think we're at the stage technologically where triple turrets and twin turrets have not identical accuracy, but they're very, very close. There's still an accuracy penalty for having more barrels over 2. Once you get to quad turrets, it can be a bit painful almost, but quad turrets also reload quite... Like, I've got one ship design that has quad turrets, which is supposed to be kind of like a Richelieu-style battleship, which I might show you. Right. This thing may get sunk before we even... we're actually close enough that AP is doing stuff. One thing I have been emphasizing in this campaign is I've kept my crew training levels quite high, and I've kept my tech levels quite high, so all my ships have radar, barring some of the older destroyers, and they've all got basically veteran crews, which both factors have meant that I've lost very few ships in fights. I've lost a couple, but very few. So yeah, this is that's a very slow battle cruiser. Good lord! It's heavy guns. Sometimes the battle cruisers tend towards smaller guns than the battleships, but this one it's kind of the other way around. It's slow, poorly armoured, but big guns, which I don't know if that really fits the battle cruiser archetype very well, to be honest. Not the best ship design. So more victory points, but you know, we're at a very minor state of victory with the oh, we lost war transports. Yay! A very minor state of victory versus the Soviets. At the moment, like I said, we've absolutely thrashed the Italians, but because the Italians have taken Austria, they actually have a reasonable chunk of points as well. So suing for peace against them at the moment would probably not work out that well. Right, let's try and... is 3 battleships going to be enough? 2 battleships, 2 battlecruisers, and is there some other fleet down there? Sometimes it stacks fleets very close together. They're sort of on top of each other, but not actually the same fleet. But I think that's just one fleet. Okay, let's give it a go. I have confidence that my remaining ships are hopefully sufficient to deal with those 2. So we've got another convoy. I probably won't even show you all of this one. So just going to be some cruisers bashing each other. And then, I don't know, we'll hopefully get a capital ship battle next turn. Actually, I'll show you a bit of this one. This is one of those older, heavily refitted designs, which we've somehow squeezed them out to nearly 30 knots. They're actually heavier displacement than some of the more recent cruisers. They've got all of the more modern technologies. There were turbo-electric drive ships for a while, which are very expensive. It's yeah, it's not a thing you're going to use often unless you're especially flush with cash. And there are a couple of specific advantages of turbo-electric drives, but the cost is not one of them. They're generally pretty horrendous. Right, we'll see if they actually want to engage. They might just run away. Sometimes the AI decides it's just going to run away. But yeah, they're still fairly capable. These older hulls, mainly because they have been so heavily upgraded. And yeah, they've got the oxygen torps as well, but just the single torp launcher on the foredeck. What's the reload on these? 7.9 seconds. I think we might have we made them like, yeah, auto reloading mechanisms. So it's like all the super modern technologies on this absolutely like ancient hull. This 40-year-old hull. I do like to do that with the campaigns sometimes, is just keep one or two classes around that are just like absolutely ancient and see how far they can be pushed and upgraded. There are a whole bunch of other ones I did scrap though, mainly due to speed reasons. But these ones were able to... oh dear, they took out a torp launcher. Fortunately, torpedo launcher detonations aren't actually that deadly in-game. They were, I think, a bit more of a problem in real life. Right, so we are catching up with this, whatever it is. But the question is, do we have the firepower to deal with it? Right, well, maybe take this destroyer under separate control. It's slightly pulling away from the comet. So whatever it is, it's got faster than 30 knots. The destroyer doesn't have the gun range yet, but might be able to drop torpedoes. It does look like this cruiser's just trying to run away. Which, given that it's outnumbered, I guess is probably the sensible thing. It's probably what I'd be doing anyway. So there we go, we've identified what it is. 6-inch gunned cruiser. Got some single deck torp launchers. It does actually look rather French. Like you can tell from the hull. A lot of the Austro-Hungarian, like, and it's the same for, say, like China. A lot of the designs after a certain point are increasingly generic, whereas if you're playing with the Royal Navy or the Soviets, or, well, the Soviets to some extent, but you know, the Americans, the French, they have a lot of very historical hulls in, and Japan as well, of course. But the problem with playing as Japan is that, well, I'll show you when we get back to the world map. Should we just? I think we're just. This is just turning into an annoying running fight. I think we'll just let them run away at this point. The problem with Japan is the world map does not wrap around. It's one of the many major flaws of this as any kind of strategy game. They apparently haven't figured out how to do that in all the time that they made this game, and did not plan that from the start. Or maybe they did plan it from the start and found it technically easier just to do a flat square map that doesn't wrap around. But yeah, it means that you know, if you want to have a big Pacific war between America and Japan, you kind of just can't, which is obviously a bit of a flaw. Anyway, we didn't really do any damage, but we chased them off from our convoy, so, you know, goal technically accomplished. So there you go, as you can see, edge of the map. It's a bit limiting. Yeah, you really are, like, you've got New Zealand on one side and then like Australia on the other. So it's definitely a weird artificiality of the game that does kind of crimp the playstyle a bit, and to be honest, it makes playing Japan, like, in theory, you know, strong naval power, should be quite interesting to play, lots of historic hulls, but the geography of the game makes them just absolutely out on the fringes and kind of annoying to play. Your main target, if you're Japan, is actually going to be China and vice versa. And if you're playing as, say, Britain, and you know, this is all kind of Commonwealth, or the Soviets, I mean, they were kind of a long way away anyway, but it does sort of limit your opportunities for going the other way around, as it were. So yeah, but yeah, I think that mainly arguably affects the US and Japan. Well, actually, maybe do a quick refit of a design that I had in mind. I was going to take one of my older 9-inch designs and see if I could slap some... I think it was that one. Slap some 16-inch guns on it. Because we're at a stage where the 9-inch gun spam, unless you have a lot of 9-inch guns like that other ship I showed you, it kind of isn't nearly as effective anymore. So we're going to try and also just to show off the shipbuilder a bit. It hasn't fundamentally changed, but yeah, we may well be able to just. Now, are we going to, like, weight is going to be the issue, I think. Right, we are overweight a bit. Is there something we can tweak to... Right, we do have more modern armour. Oil 2 will save a bit of weight. Don't know if we can... Oh, there we go. So we can go to gas turbines, but that's going to push the cost up. Has put us down underneath the weight though. We'll also maybe update. This is one of the weird things that I don't know if there's any better way to do it necessarily, but if you want to change what propellants and bursting charges that your ships are using, you have to do essentially a full refit just to change those two things, which doesn't necessarily make a huge amount of sense. We also have more modern radar available, but we can't quite squeeze that on there. We could actually try and save a bit of weight by going down to standard shells. So we go more modern radar. It's kind of a weak main deck on this. I don't know if we can squeeze a little bit more deck armor on. We could possibly almost always eliminate, say, these 3.9-inch guns as well, which are just kind of sat there. Now we have a slight aft offset. That's about as far back as we can go. I don't want to. We could. I mean, a lot of. Oh, no, I want to grab the. Yeah, the ship design is still a little finicky. Thing is, the further forward. Wait, why does that off? Oh, right, it's because it's extra citadel space. You can actually see there as you're moving it forwards and backwards. It's sort of how much citadel space you're going to be adding, as it were. Right, so this is increasing the cost of the ship, and this is one of the other things is that as you go along, you know, the better techs do end up, of course, costing more. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why my economy. Another one of the reasons why my economy is struggling a bit, is trying to keep up with things, is put a bit of strain on things. Anyway, so yeah. Only 6 of these 16-inch guns, but the 16-inch guns are way more effective than the 9-inch guns, even though I don't know if they're necessarily more sort of accurate overall. No, I think they actually are a bit more accurate at various given ranges, so that's an improvement. And plus the better radar and more effective armour. So, you know, this is definitely one of the older hull designs. Like, getting 16-inch guns onto a 21,000-ton battleship is... I don't know if it's super realistic, but anyway. So there we go. We've gone from, what is that, maintenance of 8 million a month. That's going to be now 11 million a month. So it's a small but modest increase. Yeah, 1904 hull. So we can delete that. But capital hulls, I think, is more worth keeping around than things like destroyers and light cruisers, even though the Fazana class that I showed you earlier, 1903, so that's still the earliest, but I think most of the rest of the older ones, that's the other older class of light cruiser I have that have been mainly kept around because they're relatively cheap to run and they're sort of still running modern guns, so... Yeah, so where's the... I think I did... there we go, that's the one I did that's an all-forward quad turret design. I think for a while it was like France and Britain were like the only ones that got quad turrets, but I think they've opened it up a bit. And a sort of rather generic-ish hull, because, you know, Austria-Hungary didn't really exist at this point in time in the game. So yeah, it's okay. The main advantage of I don't know why that's showing me that. I think I have to go to refit to see the... There we go. The main advantage is it's got quite a short citadel. So this one was a bit of an experiment. I've only got one of these. There we go. Peace treaty signed, so that's one less front to have to worry about. This was a very, very minor victory. So, yeah, we don't actually get to ask anything from them. That's fine. We get a little bit of money as reparations. Random malice event with Britain, which doesn't really seem to do anything with anything. All right, here we go. So, oh, there was actually 2 fleets there, unless they've reinforced that fleet. Okay, so I think this will be probably the last bit of the video will be this fight, and the frame rate will chug, which is a bit unfortunate, but hey. So here we are. I'm fairly confident about our battleships. They have a lot of heavy cruisers, though. So we'll see how this goes. So, let's do a little bit of reorganizing. Let's actually set... I like to set my heavy cruisers to follow. It sometimes organizes things slightly oddly, so we'll set them to also screen. Oh, no, screened the wrong group there. So we've got... Don't know why it's put that one cruiser in a different group, but anyway. Who knows? So we've got apparently the 9-inch gun cruisers. I do have a couple of heavy cruisers that also have 6-inch guns, but they have way more armor than the light cruisers with 6-inch guns. That's the advantage of using the heavy cruiser hull. So, what have we got? We've got the Zvinyi, which is we just created the refit for, but we actually haven't been able to refit it because that will take a while. And we're at war, so we don't really have time to implement that refit, but at some point that will have 16-inch guns. This is one that has been refitted that previously had 9-inch guns. Also has quite a lot of torpedoes for a battleship, but they are... yeah, I could probably do with refitting this to make them oxygen torps, so I could just put out occasional walls of torpedoes at like 20 plus kilometers. So yeah, fortunately that doesn't do any damage. So that's a bit of a weird concept. That again was a one-off that I've refitted with 16-inch guns, but I left the torpedoes largely intact. And this is one of the older 9-inch ones that, I mean, it's 5 turrets, so that's what, 15 barrels, so it's that possibly won't get refitted, although we might be able to fit 3 turrets on it space-wise, but I don't know if we're going to have the tonnage for 3 bigger turrets. Maybe not 16-inch turrets, maybe like 14 or something, but that would kind of not really be in keeping with the other calibers I've been using. Not that it really does anything. There's no costs for having there's no supply chain costs for having lots of different kinds of ammo, for example. So yeah, I don't necessarily think that makes a big difference. Right, so what have we got? We've got a pair of French battle cruisers, which do actually look quite French. Well done, AI. I mean, obviously, that's a sort of Richelieu style hull, but yeah, it's gone all forward quad turret design. So I wonder if they've made the AI of various nations kind of biased towards certain designs. I don't know, but you do end up sometimes with some very funky looking designs. Yeah. The cruisers, I think, are largely a uniform class of heavy cruisers, whatever they are. So yeah, we'll concentrate fire on the biggest guns first. And it'd be nice if I had my other 2 or 3 capital ships. But I do not, sadly. I don't know if I'll get a chance to have my destroyers drop their torpedoes. These are also the kind of older... I mean, I say older, they're still relatively good, but the the non-oxygen torpedoes. Right, also, I've got to actually set everyone to do torpedo avoidance, which does result still in funky behaviour. I have pointed this out before, that they can start doing all kinds of weird things when they are avoiding torpedoes. You should be avoiding that torpedo. I'm going to put you in the group of other cruisers, I think. They're Turnits. Yeah, so it's a mixed blessing. Sometimes you end up with your group massively scattered because there's been enemy torpedoes come in and they've all just dashed off in different directions and then don't really recohere again. You took a torpedo. That was not good, though it doesn't seem to have done that much damage, even though it hit amidships. Right, are you trying to get into torpedo range? Maybe. They're still relatively far away. Anyway, yeah, we'll probably do some time skips here. And it also means I can have a coughing fit in peace. It's one of the things about doing this. It's a lot easier to edit around having to cough than it was trying to record that video yesterday. Right, they are actually fairly substantial in terms of their firepower. 18-inch guns and 14-inch belt, 7-inch deck, 34. Yeah, these are actually quite capable ships. They do have also Gem 1 radar, so there's that to worry about. Yeah, about the only antiquated thing I can see there is they've only got Citadel 3 rather than All or Nothing, which is Citadel 5. Krupp 4 armour as well, so yeah, they're not like the most modern they could be, but still definitely not to be sniffed at. Anyway, we have done some decent damage already. We've kind of fairly wrecked that forward section actually, but yeah, there's still only a very few ships in the game which have like it's kind of like Will of Warships. It just applies these little damaged decals to the ship. There's only a couple of ships where the sort of physical model changes to show more extensive damage. There's a couple of things where it always will, like a wrecked funnel will usually look different. The wrecked turret is always going to be completely blackened, although it's not kind of like visibly blown apart or anything like that. So yeah, that's I don't know if they plan to eventually do that, or if that's just they did it with a couple of the early game models and then decided it was going to be too much work to do for all of the models. So who knows? That's just speculation on my part. Yeah, this thing is really burning, so we're still kind of going for an HE strategy, although I'm not directing my ships to use any particular ammo. They're just choosing it automatically. But the 16-inch guns, the AP is actually going to do something at this range, so that's what they're doing, is using that. Yeah, everybody's kind of split apart a bit. But I think we're dishing out more damage just about. Yeah, they've landed 3K's worth of damage. We've landed nearly 4K so far. And the damage has been more to the capital units, so I mean those are obviously our first priority, and then we'll pick apart the heavy cruisers after that. Right, these are actually not quite the same design, I've noticed. These are rocking slightly above 15-inch guns, so this one's a Richelieu almost. But they actually do cost around about the same, so I wonder if this is just, yeah, a bit less armour on the belt. Diesel engine, interesting. So that one's got Citadel 5, that's All or Nothing. So this one is, I guess, a little more modern in terms of a lot of its techs. better barbette armor, better anti-torp. Yeah, interesting. Okay, so they're not a uniform class. Quite often, something like that they can be. But yeah, let's kind of double back the line. Right, there we go. Extensive fire has basically burned it out. That's still a very valid strategy in this game. Well, we did do a fairly good job battering it structurally, but it's the fire that did it in the end. The other thing that is that happens quite frequently, I've noticed with where I've been building my ships, is once this hits the magic number of 45% losses, a ship will automatically surrender. Although that doesn't mean you get the ship. You would think, okay, the ship has surrendered, therefore I get to salvage the ship afterwards. It's still kind of in a ship-worthy condition enough. I'm trying to think of the right word there. It's still, you know, in a good enough condition that it's still floating, that it could still fight. It's just it's lost enough crew that they've become demoralised and surrendered. But that does not mean that you get the ship. It's really annoying. That is then just count as sunk on the end screen. And I kind of hope they change that, because that would be fun if you could get other people's ships that way instead of just as reparations. Because at the moment the only way you get enemy nation ship is through reparations, and to be honest, I don't usually keep them if I do take any ships. I usually just scrap them and get the money from them that you get from scrap value, because you can't upgrade them at all, and sometimes they're, you know, fairly antiquated designs. Oh, you didn't oh well, it was fairly minor torpedo damage, but still not great. Still not great. So yeah, their battle cruisers are out of commission. That just leaves their heavy cruisers now, which we'll maybe have a bit of a look at. Oh, what's that? More incoming torpedoes. I think it was. I'm going to be able to turn away from... Oh no, that's fine. That's going to be... I can probably put that under AI control now, actually. So yeah, let's see what their heavy cruisers are like. 6-inch guns. Are these all the same class? It looks like they are 15,000 ton, 150 million. That's fairly expensive for a heavy cruiser. Yeah, triple 6.4 inches. So they're going with lightly gunned cruisers as well. I guess that's okay armor. Generally more modern techs, diesel engines, Crop 4, Citadel 5. Only TNT 2 bursting charges there. Oxygen torps, okay, so this is why the torpedoes are coming in at quite such long ranges, because they're using the oxygen powered torps as well. Yeah, at this stage this is just kind of mopping up these cruisers. So. To be honest, I don't know if it's tactics or if it's technology or whatever, but maybe it's just crew training, because these are all regular trained crews, and the fact that I have been putting an emphasis on crew training really seems to matter quite a lot. So my veteran crews versus their regular crews, I think this is one of the reasons why I absolutely trounced the Italian fleet and lost very, very few ships in the process. So yeah, I don't know if that's maybe a little overpowered at the moment, the crew training, but yeah, it is what it is. Right, we're a little further on. I'm having to retreat one of my battleships because its crew losses are getting dangerously high. We're also running out of ammunition. That's proving to be a real problem. So we might not actually be able to kill all of these heavy cruisers. The torpedoes they're carrying are actually proving to be annoyingly effective, because the amount of manoeuvring it's forcing my ships to do, of course, is degrading their accuracy overall. So yeah, this oxygen torpedo spam, it does work. I was saying earlier on that they're probably at their most effective during the early game, but just in terms of, like, not necessarily doing damage, but in terms of disruption, they're still quite useful in the late game once you get that oxygen propulsion tech and get those very, very long-range torpedoes. In these kind of situations where you have big blobs of ships, yeah, they are very disruptive. And that's probably one of the reasons why we've run out of ammo so quickly, is because everyone's been having to dodge and no one can get maybe quite close enough for their guns to be the most effective, just because there's been so much torpedo spam to try and dodge. So it's just launched even more. So yes, for goodness sake, so many torpedoes. We're definitely winning though. I mean, we really are out damaging them. We haven't lost any ships, even though I've been forced to retreat a battleship, and one of my destroyers took a nasty hit as well. For some reason, and this is another weird bug, the Glorreich, however you want to pronounce this, that sometimes battleships, or like the lead group of ships, once they take a certain amount of damage, they just kind of they kind of end up skipping groups, and they'll join other groups randomly, and you can't put them back, so you end up with like a battleship and a group of light cruisers, and then of course the light cruisers are all going very slowly because the battleship is much slower than them. So yeah, it's kind of annoying. That's been quite a long-standing bug at this point, and I do hope it gets resolved at some point. Right, oh, more torpedoes. They're starting to run down on torpedoes, so we can get maybe a bit closer. Their light cruiser's just running the heck away. So I think their light cruiser might get to live, but we should be able to kill these remaining heavies. Oh! Oh no! What happened there? Oh, it's torpedoes. Oof. Ouch. Okay, well, that's one of our light cruisers down. That's actually one of my newer light cruisers as well. It's one of the 5.5-inch ones, with a slightly funky turret arrangement, as you can see. Triple turrets, fore and aft. Yeah, wow, that just got absolutely nuked. What was that, like 2 torpedo hits? Yeah, 2 torpedo hits was enough to do that. Ouch! Oh well. Even the auto dodge command doesn't always work that well, but once you start to get to larger groups of ships, there's just no way of effectively sort of keeping track of every incoming torpedo and making them dodge effectively. Although it's certainly worth doing it for your bigger, more expensive ships. Oh well, having lost 1 light cruiser for the enemy battle cruisers and several heavy cruisers that we've sunk so far, I can't really complain too much. But look how scattered everybody is, just because of the need to dodge the torpedoes. It's quite annoying. Oh, there we go. Finally scored a torpedo hit of our own. We are really seriously running low on ammo. Like the Kron Prince. I don't know how I even say that. Herzog? I don't know. Rudolph. Anyway, basically completely out of main battery ammo, and it's now down to secondary guns only. So yeah, they're still doing something, but it's just means it's going to take so much longer to sink these remaining ships. I don't know if this is like particularly realistic, the way the gunnery happens in these games. That it is very, very easy to run out of ammo, and it doesn't feel particularly historically accurate. Oh, torpedo! Oh, wrong way. Oh, was that dud? It was a dud torpedo. Okay, yeah, that can happen. It's annoying if it's your own, but sometimes you do get that that freebie, that pass of it being a dud. We might even, I don't know, like hopefully this isn't going to just time out, but even if it does, you know, we'll walk away with far more victory points than they do. Bunch of heavy cruisers and their battle cruisers for 1 light cruiser. definitely not a fair exchange. It is. That's like I said, it is unusual for me to lose a ship in an engagement. It has happened, but it's definitely unusual. I've decided to retreat just on time more than anything else. We could probably deal with these remaining 4 heavy cruisers and the light cruiser, but yeah, I think we're just going to. Like, I'm almost out of time for recording, so. It's at the point where if I go for too much longer, I'm going to be late for work. So, yeah, we're just going to wrap things up for this video here, I think. Not too much more to say than I have already, anyway. You've gotten some idea of the current state of the game, hopefully. So there we go, 10,000 victory points. Yeah, they sunk 1 light cruiser. I absolutely will take that trade. It would have been nice to sink. What did they have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 heavies, I think, left, and the light cruiser was pretty beat up. But yeah, overall, I will absolutely take it. Wow, their battle cruisers did. One of their battle cruisers did literally almost no damage. Goodness sake. It's actually one of their cruisers that did the most. Oh, I'm looking at damage received rather than damage done, am I? No, yeah, I'm looking at damage done. Right, so yeah, my battleships were top of that list. The Polar, actually, the cruiser that sunk, managed to do pretty well for itself as well. So yeah, not a bad trade. I will absolutely take it, but I am going to need to replace that light cruiser. So off the back of that, France actually would like a peace treaty, and quite honestly, yes, I'll take it. It's 1 less nation to deal with, and I might get some money out of it as well. And it's 1 less nation sniping up my transports. Also, so yeah, we'll actually save that, and we'll take a quick look at the beta patch notes as well, because there is an upcoming fairly major patch that does seem to have well, mostly new hulls, but some other changes as well. So this is the beta patch notes. You can actually, if you have the game already, you just go to your properties and select the beta branch, and it'll actually let you. I'm saying beta like an American. Beta! It's beta! For some reason in the UK we pronounce it beta, and in the US they pronounce it beta, and I have no idea why, but I sort of flip-flop between the versions. Anyway, so yeah, this is going to be one of those bigger ones which actually like wipes a campaign save. So this is why I've been sort of trying to finish that campaign. So yeah, lots and lots of sort of specific, nation-specific different hulls. As you can see, I think there's like 40 odd of them. There's quite a lot. I mean, so things like, yeah, this one's Spain and China, so that's going to be a sort of fairly generic one. Yeah, there's quite a few of them. You're going to be able to build an Omaha class, which is quite nice. That's something you can't do at the moment. Lots of ones that say speculative hull, so they're not sort of necessarily historically based on anything. They're sort of a bit more generic, but generic of that nation. 3-mast cruiser, that's going to be interesting. Potentially. Battleship hulls, small battleships, fast battleships, cruisers. So, there's going to be a bunch. There's also going to be quad guns for all text calibers and nations. So basically, I think everyone and every... Like at the moment, not every caliber has a quad gun option, but it looks like that's going to be the case. So some new gun models, optimization. This is going to be quite a big one, because at the moment the load screens can take quite a long time. Yeah, smoother FPS versus during combat. That's also going to be quite useful. And then there's some other sort of campaign AI updates and. Yeah, this one's going to be quite a big one, actually. The maximum hull armor. So it's not just going to be all light cruisers can only have up to 6 inches of hull armor, for example. So that that might make the hulls a little more individual rather than just light cruiser, heavy cruiser, whatever. So yeah, it's going to be a fairly major patch, and I might have to start a new campaign and play through it, and maybe I'll dip into that and do a video on that at some point as well. So that is UA Dreadnoughts. It's something. It's not a great strategy game, but it's alright if you like designing ships and bashing them together. So, basically what I said earlier. So, yeah. It's maybe worth your time if that is of interest to you. And certainly it's probably of more interest to the people who watch my warships videos than some other, you know, if I was a completely non-warships channel is what I'm trying to vaguely say, I guess. Anyway, I think I'd better wrap things up here, otherwise I really will be late for work. So if you have enjoyed this, you can do all the usual things down underneath the video. And of course, as always, stay tuned for more.